boy has to die so the man can live. What do I mean by that? I mean your old self needs to die so your new self can live. It's going to be a lot harder to lose weight if you keep identifying as someone who is fat. Look, what I'm really talking about is manifestation. Once I changed the way I spoke to myself, the way I identified as, that's when I started to see results in real life. What is your identity? Your identity is simply your beliefs, and your beliefs are simply your dominant thought pattern. The boy has to die so the man can live. What do I mean by that? I mean your old self needs to die so your new self can live. How can you change? How can you be a better version of yourself? How can you improve your life if you keep thinking the same thoughts, if you keep identifying the same way as you always had? For example, if you're trying to lose weight, it's going to be a lot harder to lose weight if you keep identifying as someone who is fat. If you keep identifying as someone who loves to eat junk food, who loves to sit around all day, if you keep thinking about yourself as someone who doesn't like to exercise, who doesn't like to eat healthy food, who doesn't like to cook food, is going to be a lot harder. That's exactly what I used to do, and that's exactly what made it so difficult to lose weight in a sustainable way. I would keep yo-yo dieting. I would keep losing 5 pounds, gaining 5 pounds, losing 10 pounds, gaining 10 pounds. I would just stay so stagnant because internally I kept telling myself the same story. I identified as somebody who was lazy. I identified as somebody who liked eating all these sugary foods. I would tell myself like, oh, I love chocolate. You know, chocolate is my weakness. I love eating sweets. And then lo and behold, I kept eating sweets. I kept eating chocolate, and that made it a lot harder to stay in a calorie deficit. That made it a lot harder to stick to my diet. But it wasn't until I changed the narrative. I literally changed the thoughts that I constantly told myself, my dominant thought pattern. Once I changed the way I spoke to myself, the way I identified as, that's when I started to see results in real life. I had to change my internal diet before I could change my external diet, right? People call it the mental diet. It's the thoughts that you continuously tell yourself. We're literally programming ourselves every single day, whether it's through social media, the content we consume, or just the constant thoughts that we always tell ourselves. We're always identifying as a version of ourselves through the stories we tell ourselves. So again, if you tell yourself you're not good enough to do something, then you're not going to do it. It's like that old saying, whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're right. Look, what I'm really talking about is manifestation. There's a lot of videos online about manifestation and what it is or what it isn't, but let me just give you my take on it from everything I understand. Look, your thoughts create your reality. Like I said, whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're right. You keep telling yourself you're not good enough to accomplish something, you're not going to be good enough to accomplish it. You're not going to even put forth the effort required to do it. When I was younger and I used to tell myself that I wasn't attractive, that I wasn't good enough to go on dates, to get a girlfriend, what do you think happened when I was younger? I didn't go on dates. I didn't get a girlfriend. I didn't even put forth the effort. I didn't even try because I had already assumed a state of not being good enough, and that was what was reflected in my reality. Telling yourself the same story, you're gonna keep getting the same results because it's just a loop. Your identity feeds into your habits. Your habits are a direct representation of how you identify as. But then when you do those habits, that then reinforces your identity, aka your beliefs, aka your dominant thoughts, aka the story you keep telling yourself. It's all just different words for the same thing. So this is just a feedback loop, and this can be positive or negative. Remember, I made the video about weed, right? About quitting weed and the addiction cycle. This looks a little bit similar because if you identify as an addict and you keep telling yourself, I'm addicted, I'm addicted, I'm addicted, well, then you're gonna start to act like an addict. You're gonna start to do the habits that an addict would do. And you're gonna start to have these uncontrollable cravings because you're literally programming yourself. You're creating new neural pathways with your thoughts, with the constant thoughts that you keep engaging with. That's creating these habits. And then that's feeding back into that identity as an addict. You see, it's all just programming. It's all literally neural pathways in our brains. We are creating literally different physical forms of our brains. Our brain is always changing. It's neuroplasticity. It's always changing. It's always physically evolving based on the thoughts that we keep engaging in. That's why I always talk about meditation. Because when you meditate, you are teaching yourself to not engage in every single thought. You start to learn to observe your thoughts. Observe the thoughts that are creating your identity. Because when you can observe them, you can break this pattern. By observing, you could see, oh, I'm telling myself these negative things. I'm identifying as someone who's not good enough. I'm identifying as someone who can't do it. I'm identifying as someone who can't get the things that I want. And that is leading me to act in a way, act as if I am that person. I'm acting in a way that reinforces the identity, right? Our brains are literally always looking to prove us correct. Our subconscious mind is always looking to prove us correct. Why do you think people get delusional and, tell themselves stories about, whether it's religion or like certain beliefs or whatever? It's like people genuinely believe their religion is correct because they identify with it. And then they start going to church and they start reading their holy book, and it just reinforces their identity. And then you have different people of different faiths arguing with each other, but in their minds, they're all correct because they all identify with it. And you see right here, the identity of I can't do it, that leads directly to no action taken. And then no action taken leads directly back to the identity of I can't do it. It's all just reinforcing each other. This can be a positive feedback loop or it can be a negative feedback loop. It really depends on you and what dominant thoughts you're choosing. Like going back to the fitness example, once I started talking to myself differently, I literally said, no, actually, I love eating clean, simple, healthy foods. I love eating fruits and vegetables, getting my protein in. I love getting my steps in every day. And yeah, you might not feel it at first. You might not feel an identification with that because you're so used to the other way of thinking. You're so used to the old identity, the old habits. But you just keep talking to yourself, and that slowly builds a new identity, slowly reprograms your brain, gives you new neural pathways. You start practicing different habits, and now you're actually eating clean. Now I was actually eating clean. I was actually getting my steps in. I'm actually lifting more regularly. Now all of a sudden, that creates the identity, right? For me, I was already lifting. That was like the easy part. I would always tell myself, I love lifting. I love going to the gym. I have tons of muscle. But then I would say, oh, but cutting is hard. Losing weight is difficult. Sticking to the diet is difficult. And what do you know? My habits reinforce that. I would go to the gym, lift weights, build muscle, build strength, easy. But then I would struggle with the cut. I would overeat. I would eat too much sugar, too much junk food, and then I wouldn't lose the weight. So then I would be some like big dude who has muscle and strength, but is also fat on top of that. And so I didn't look good and I didn't feel good. Now I talk to myself like a lean person. I have to identify as a lean person to become a lean person. So I love exercising. I love walking outside. I love getting out in nature. I love eating fruits and vegetables, pineapples and strawberries and kiwis and like carrots and like steamed broccoli, all this shit, sauteing onions and mushrooms and bell peppers along with scrambled eggs, all these different good foods. And then because I'm eating that, because I'm doing that, now it's just reinforcing. So I'm kind of repeating myself because it really is that simple. I think we overcomplicate this too much. I think manifestation as a concept is overcomplicated in this space because people want to get more clicks. But it really is just this basic. Your identity feeds your habits, and then your habits reinforce your identity. But you can change your identity by changing your dominant thought. Because if your identity is shaping your 3D reality, because it's shaping your habits, it's shaping your actions, well, what is your identity? Your identity is simply your beliefs. And your beliefs are simply your dominant thought pattern. These are the thoughts that you're always thinking. This is the story that you're always telling yourself. And once you become aware of that, now we can consciously choose, oh, actually, I was going back to the old way of thinking. I was just talking negatively about myself. I'm going to consciously, intentionally choose different thoughts. No, actually, I'm not lazy. Actually, I'm not stupid. Actually, I am attractive. Actually, people do love talking to me. Actually, I am worthy. Actually, I am healthy. Actually, I am consistent. And you start talking to yourself like that over and over, and you be consistent, because we've been in the old thought pattern that's been dominant for so long. So that's like our default. And it takes time to move from the old pattern to the new pattern. But if you remain consistent, just like with working out at the gym, you're used to not exercising and you're used to eating junk. But if you stay consistent with eating good food and exercising, now that becomes your new normal. If you stay consistent with thinking differently and talking to yourself more positively, instead of the old habits, the old negative ways of thinking, now that new positive programming becomes your new normal. So it's really all about you and your discipline and your consistency. How are you speaking to yourself? Because all manifestation is, all it comes down to is, how do you speak to yourself? Because all manifestation comes down to ultimately is, how do you speak to yourself? How do you talk to yourself? How do you identify as? Again, what is your dominant thought pattern? That's the key. That's all this is. I can go more into why this is, but right now I just wanted to talk about the what and keep it very simple. And I'll leave you with this quote I saw in a Sammy Ingram video. Shout out to Sammy Ingram. I think she's probably like the best manifestation YouTuber because she simplifies it. The only manifestation mistake you're making is not identifying as the version of yourself that already has it. So identify as the one who already has it. Be the version of yourself that already has it. In your mind, speak to yourself like, I'm already him. I'm already her. I'm already the person. I already have it. I'm already successful. I already do what it takes. I'm already consistent. You see how that builds up and that snowballs. Try it. Just try it for yourself and see how it goes. I'm not trying to convince you of anything. I'm just giving you a tool that you can use to reprogram your subconscious mind, because that affects everything else. All right, my friends, thank you all for watching. Look for more manifestation videos coming soon. I can dive deeper into the science behind it. There's a lot of stuff we can talk about here, but I just wanted to give a basic overview. Change your identity, change your life, change the way you speak to yourself, change your dominant thought pattern. You will change everything. Okay, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.